Well, if you don't know, Hannah and I have been married for 10 years. We moved to Bournemouth in 2014, joined Citygate Church. We've always wanted to have a family, and we got pregnant quite quickly in 2015, but we had a miscarriage, we've spent since then trying to get pregnant again, but it's been more complicated than we thought. So we've been on a bit of a journey of infertility.
Yeah. So initially, it was difficult to get much help because we'd been pregnant. So there was a length of time for that, and then also just everything sort of seemed well from the doctor's perspective. But it kind of got quite complicated, and eventually my periods did stop. We tried some intervention. I was getting some help for that, but it wasn't successful. And consultants confirmed that I wasn't ovulating, so that's what needed to happen.
That was the reason why we weren't getting pregnant.
Yeah, I think the nature of sort of living with having had that grief of a miscarriage and living with infertility, I was trying to carry on normal life, but obviously that was really difficult. And it did throw up some health issues for me, which I do sometimes still struggle with, and have done. And also before we moved to Bournemouth, I left a really difficult work situation. So I had some trauma to deal with from that as well. So there was a lot of loss in this period of time. So it was very challenging for us together, wasn't it?
I had difficulty with work as well. I was losing my job left, right and centre, and it's just, I didn't know when it was going to end, and I was just feeling completely unsettled with work over a number of years and unemployment. And so I felt quite empty as a man in terms of work and family, and in terms of how old I was, and I felt quite broken from that point of view as well.
It was a lot to go through together, wasn't it?
Yeah, all sort of at once. Yeah, there was a lot of hopelessness, disappointment, waiting during that time, and the treatment that Ham was on was meant to get to ovulate, but it didn't, and the consultants confirmed with the tests that it hadn't worked, and that treatment had to stop just before lockdown in 2020, so we didn't know when it was going to start up again. And I think our prayers had pretty much run dry by that point, because we just did not know what to do, and we basically just needed a miracle at that point.
Yeah, it was actually almost laughable, just the obstacle, wasn't it? And just knew, God, we just need a miracle. And just really asked for that, and and then the next natural cycle that I had, I conceived naturally, supernaturally. God really came through, and He came through at that point, because it was so hard to believe, wasn't it?
It was. I was just so thrilled that I was going to be a dad. Like, it was just the most amazing feeling that feeble prayer was just answered in that way.
And I just had so much peace throughout the whole pregnancy, despite it being difficult and having walked through what we had, but just felt so much supernatural peace. And just when we had Hudson on the 13th of December 2020, just that fulfillment of our hope was absolutely amazing. It was just a miraculous time, wasn't it?
I think I probably learnt that my faith was more fragile, and yet, by God's grace, stronger at the same time than I realised. My confidence in God was knocked through the. And I was really genuinely struggling to believe that He had good plans for us, something I'd not struggled to believe before. It just felt like life was telling me otherwise. And I just had to, in the end, I just had to switch off those lies and just trust God for who He was, not for what he had done or was doing, because it didn't seem like he was doing anything. But in the end, like that, his closeness just pulled me through in a way I hadn't expected, and he was faithful in all the invisible things, like the timing and everything. It just made it all work.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things, isn't there, when you go through things. There's just so much that you do learn about yourself and, you know, hopefully learn about God. And I think, you know, I realised that I could say more to God than I ever thought, although I actually found that really difficult because I like pleasing God. Yeah, so I learned about that in a difficult way, but also, you know, that when I really did struggle to battle on, actually, you know, God's faithfulness was what held me. It wasn't me battling. It was Him that saw me through and that was faithful and merciful. And, you know, I got pregnant at a point where I was, you know, more detached probably from Him than I would have liked to have been, and, you know, I suppose even, you know, my doubts and my feelings can't thwart God's plans. And, you know, it's actually very releasing to have seen His faithfulness when I was struggling with faith, and that makes Him really trustworthy. The supernatural protection that we felt has been brilliant, and you know, just having Hudson has just been it really has been the part of that healing, the start of that healing. And yeah, looking in his eyes is joy.
So Martyn and I have been married since August 2016, and we've always wanted to have children.
I mean, we even discussed baby names on our second date.
Sounds crazy, but it's true. So we really felt it was God's plan for us to have a child, but a few years into our marriage we realised that actually this was much more trickier than it was. We were really struggling to conceive. So we went to the GP at that time, had a few tests, and the message back to us was, go home, crack on, there doesn't seem to be much that we can do for you at this time.
I mean, this was a horrible feeling for us, as we really felt that it was God's plan for us to have children, and we had so much love to give a child.
And at that time, I massively struggled with seeing people around me getting pregnant. It felt like every single female that I knew in my life was suddenly pregnant, and that just I really found that hard to deal with in my own heart. Now, what we ended up doing was seeking the advice of a specialist, and had many other tests, a lot more in depth. And actually they found out that I have polycystic ovary syndrome, which significantly decreases the chances of getting pregnant naturally. We very quickly discovered that if we were going to get anywhere, it would most likely involve a lot of medication, including some needles.
I mean, Cheryl is needle phobic, so this was a problem. I mean, I would assist with the injections every day, and each time we did one, we would always have worship music playing, praying and remembering that God is bigger than this and that God will get us through this.
Definitely. I mean, we were always praying, and we're so thankful for the support we had from people in church, and particularly in our friends in our life group. It was so important to us.
But in November 2020, as part of our IVF journey, we were getting ready to go to hospital for Cheryl to go through a procedure of egg collection, and the day before, our consultant cancelled it.
This was a massive, massive low for us. And actually, where we had been seeking the advice of the specialist, we were suddenly put on an emotional roller coaster of hope. Suddenly, we were given these massive highs where we weren't experiencing them before. We were moving forward with things, and then to have a low like that right at the last moment was so crushing for us. And actually, hope was the only thing that we could cling on to at that time.
But a few months later, we actually made it to the hospital. We went through the egg collection, and then we had a waiting game. Then one Saturday morning, we did a pregnancy test, and it was positive. We were pregnant.
which is amazing and one of the most surreal experiences. We had to take so many pregnancy tests on our journey so far, and they all were coming up with the negative line. So to suddenly see the positive line was another emotional high for us. Now, pregnancy wasn't the most easiest of journeys for us. There was some interesting times. I'm sure quite a few people would say that about their pregnancies. However, on the 22nd of November 2021, our lovely little miracle was born. Our lovely little girl called Rosie Hope entered our world.
Ta-da!
Here she is!
Here she is!